in the United States, our national security leadership, and really around the world, is too often to zero in on the flavor of the week jihadi group, which just happens to be going by the name Islamic State these days. You know, last week it was ISIS, Islamic State in Iraq and al-Sham. Before that, it was Al-Qaeda in Iraq. Point being that the names are really kind of irrelevant. What we need to be focusing on instead, I would suggest, is the reality that there is a network, a global jihad movement that is worldwide, and that includes all of the violent Islamic terror groups like Al-Qaeda, like Boko Haram, like Al-Shabaab, Taliban, and Islamic State, of course, but also includes groups like Tablighi Jamaat, which now has been tied to the shooters in San Bernardino, California, in the United States a week ago. But that itself does not commit violent Islamic terror at the moment. Or a group like the Muslim Brotherhood, which is avowedly, self-avowedly jihadist, and yet in the United States at least, does not behave as a terrorist organization, and yet certainly provides support to the groups that are, and in fact is the granddaddy of most Sunni Islamic terror groups today. So it incorporates all of those groups, as well as individuals who may support Islamic supremacism and the imposition of Sharia, the spread of Sharia worldwide. And this would be people who teach, speak, write, broadcast, fund jihad. So global jihad movement is how we at the Center for Security Policy would talk about this. In that, the current fight in what used to be called Iraq, the former Syria, places that the Islamic State has taken over, and where the Islamic State really has erased international borders. That particular fight is partly, at least, a Sunni Shiite intra-Islamic sectarian fight, but it also has other ethnic and tribal ramifications to it. And in those places, really, there's no, real core compelling national security interest for the United States to get in the middle of all of that. Any side that we choose to support, any side that we choose to oppose, is an enemy, is a jihadist enemy, whether they be Shiite or Sunni. If they belong to the Iranian axis, the Shiite axis, Baghdad, Beirut, Damascus, Tehran, or if they belong to the Sunni side of things, be it Islamic State, Jabhat al-Nusra, which is the Al-Qaeda affiliate over there, or one of the myriad other militias fighting in that snake pit, they're all jihadis. They all hate us. There's no point in intervening in a way that benefits one set of jihadi enemies in order to oppose another set of jihadi enemies. But elsewhere in the world, where it is a lot more clear-cut that the Islamic State opposes a government, like let's say in Nigeria, where Boko Haram has pledged allegiance to the Islamic State, to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and there are no Shiite forces in opposition there. It's the Nigerian government and people of Nigeria versus the Islamic State. Very clear-cut. We should be helping them, supporting them to the extent that they would like us to do that. And certainly in the West, in our own countries, where, again, we may or may not have actual operatives or fighters belonging to the Islamic State that have been sent over from there to here, although our southern border in the United States with Mexico certainly is a place to watch. But the point, rather, is that in our Western societies, more in Western Europe, as we've seen certainly, but certainly in our Western Hemisphere countries, Canada, the United States, and elsewhere, there are populations of Muslims already living among us, from which some percentage, don't know what that percentage may be, some percentage among them are not only Sharia adherent and openly in polls, such as those commissioned by the Center for Security Policy, admitting that they would rather have Sharia than the U.S. Constitution. So not only, are they Sharia adherent, but actively promoting Sharia in various ways, whether they speak, write, broadcast, fund Jihad. This is a potential population of people who would be adversaries to our Western system, our Judeo-Christian based legal system, our Constitution, secular law, man-made law, gender equality, and all of the rest. So what I'm saying here is that it's not just a question of actual cadres, operators, fighters that have been to the Middle East or had training over there, but populations right here living in our own societies already right now whose sympathies lie with Sharia, with jihad in order to impose Sharia, to spread Sharia. So that is what we're facing more than any particular name of this or that group. They're going to change it next week anyway. We do have allies in the Middle East. Foremost among those, of course, would be Israel, Jordan. I think that the Kurds deserve all the support and help we can give them, in particular with modern high-tech heavy weaponry, which they lack, but which the Islamic State has plenty of because they captured a lot of U.S. equipment when the Iraqi army fled back a year ago in 2014. So Israel, Jordan, the Kurds certainly over there would be our foremost and should be our foremost allies in the fight. But more broadly, I think we need to be looking for all of those who value the tenets of Western civilization, wherever they may be geographically, those who support the principles of Western civilization, because they too, other places too, other countries as well, have populations of Muslims, either immigrants or citizens, living among them, whose allegiance is not always first and foremost to that country or its legal system, but rather to Sharia, because they see themselves not as citizens of that place, of that country, but rather as members of the Islamic Ummah. So we need to be allying with all of our friends who embrace Western civilization. At the Center for Security Policy, earlier this year in 2015, we put together this book. It's called The Secure Freedom Strategy, A Plan for Victory Over the Global Jihad Movement. And it is a strategy, a blueprint, if you will, for a national security strategy for the United States that is comprehensive and a whole of government, if you will. And so in the book, which was co-authored by a number of our colleagues, there are sections devoted to how to employ cyber warfare. Certainly with the Islamic State's capabilities in the cyber realm, we need a really robust, modern, technologically advanced strategy to confront the Islamic State on the web, on the internet. So cyber, certainly diplomatic measures, economic and financial measures, legal measures, lawfare, as we would call it. Certainly military measures. No question that military setbacks on the battlefield get their attention. Not enough all by itself to defeat the Islamic State or its ideology, but important. Political measures, social all of these ideological and intelligence measures are described in this book. So what we think we need to do is to incorporate a whole host, the full gamut of capabilities that we as a government and as a society can bring to bear to defeat not just the Islamic State or whatever it's going to call itself next week, but the entirety of the global jihad movement.